The zombies, they're coming. But don't worry, I made this guy and I can show you how it's done.
And this is the beginning. I have the wireframe that I'm going to be making with this very tensile hard strength wire, and I also am going to be using these item that was required for the contest I was entering, which was I had to use vampire teeth, and these vampire teeth were like 12 for $1 at the Dollar Tree or dollar store, and they were glow in the dark. I didn't realize they were glow in the dark, but I'm going to need a head of this chomper about this size to actually be proportional to that. So that basically dictated the size of the project. And these wire was very hard wire, and there's actually a portion of this that I edited out where I actually had to go and bend it with the vase, because bending it with these small pliers was just not appropriate whatsoever. But I needed to measure this out first, and you can see I have really a hard time even trying to manipulate this. So I went and manipulated these in the garage, and now I've got 3 separate ones that are bent to the right positions that I wanted. And these are very hard wire, and it's used. I chose this type of wire because of the disproportional size of the head of the chomper to its body. And here I am now getting the body taped up with masking tape, and as well putting on aluminum foil to make the leaves of what are also the chomper's feet. And this is really easy to kind of just form and get into the type of shape that I want. And it's also nice that it can be nice and thin, just like a leaf. So those are all done. I had 3 here. I could have done 4, but I thought that 3 was sufficient, as well as it gives my own little take on it. Most chompers probably have more leaves in the video game, but I chose just to go with 3 and leave it at that. And here's the head that I'm using with newspaper. I chose newspaper because I wanted it to be lightweight as possible at the head, because again, the head was just so much bigger than the rest of the body and disproportionate that I didn't want this to tip over. So that's why I chose a material that was readily accessible and was very lightweight. And here I'm just using plain masking tape. Now this is masking tape, that's the painter's masking tape, but you can just use regular masking tape. I just happened to have this by the desk at the time, and it was easy and convenient to have. I'm going to cover it all with an aluminum foil. Again, this is all going to be covered up with some paper mache. So this is just really to form it, as well as to form out the mouth, because I can actually use the aluminum foil to create more details, including making out that mouth for the chomper and getting a place for those teeth to fit into, whereas I couldn't do that with just the newspaper. And here I am now getting everything all taped up with the masking tape. And again, it doesn't matter what this looks like at this point, because it's all going to be covered over later on in the project with different material. And getting it all secured. And now I'm going to be making the arms. The arms are made out of a smaller, lighter gauge weight wire, and I'm going to bend those in place to encircle the larger pieces of wire and aluminum foil that I have already laid down. And here I am just manipulating them and getting them into the shape that I want. And this is a very organic type shape. It wasn't like a complete necessarily pose. It was kind of a dynamic type of pose. And here I am using aluminum to now cover up those little tiny pieces of wire, which I'm not even quite sure you can really see on camera all that well, but I'm now going to be giving those little tentacles, vines that come off the chomper a little bit more substance. And I'm going to do the first bit of paper mache here, which is really a very simple formula of paper mache, which is basically going to be toilet paper or paper towels with a mixture of 50% glue and 50% water. And this is the same type of formula you can see on the DM Scotty's website, on his YouTube channel. And I just pretty much used that. Now, unfortunately for me, I actually didn't get the formula correct, and this was way more watered down than it really should have been. There should have been a lot. It really needs to be a 50% glue, 50% water mix. And this glue is just Elmer's glue. It is known as PVA glue. It's the school glue, non-toxic stuff, and it's good for these kinds of projects. I'm also going to now also get the head covered with paper, as well as the mouth, and being sure to use this to get the those vampire teeth, costume teeth put in. And here I'm also using a little bit of forming to make up the lips. And here we have the finished product right here after that was all dried up. And there were still some places that were not quite in place. And again, this is because of my lack of diligence to make sure that my formula of 50% glue, 50% water was correct. So there was areas where it was sticking up, so I had to pretty much use tape to get it in place. And now here's the paper clay, and you should know that the paper clay, I have a whole video on how to make this paper clay also on my channel. Just go to my channel and you'll be able to find it quite easily. And I found that in order to apply this paper clay, it was actually easier to roll it out with just a rolling pin. I've probably used this rolling pin quite a bit now for rolling out paper clay as opposed to actually baking anything. And this gets it really nice and thin and gets over the structure that I've already kind of laid out pretty well. And it also, since it's going paper on paper, it kind of adheres to the paper semi-good, but it actually adheres to itself more so. And you can see that's why I'm actually going to be squeezing this all together throughout the project, and as well as layering these different layers of rolled out paper clay onto the actual structure itself. And what's nice about paper clay is that it is like a clay, even though it is paper and technically like a paper mache, it can be sculpted. And here I am trying to add in some details for the leaf, and using basically a painter's knife here to create some lines, which give it a little bit of substance. If you see it in person, it doesn't really necessarily catch up on camera all that much. And now here I am also, you can see how when you roll out that paper clay, it basically looks like dough. It looks like a pierogi dough. And here I am showing that you can very much use this very much like regular clay. You add water to it, and that actually kind of degrades it a little bit so that it can actually stick together. So just like your clay that you would find out of the ground or pottery type clay, this actually will stick together when you add a little bit of water to it. And here I am using a painter's knife, but I actually, it does do a good job of smoothing it out, but actually my fingers and just with water actually was what I ended up finding that was the better method to actually getting this all in place. And here I am actually getting all those seams of all those kind of doughy substances kind of put together, and so it actually looks nice and smooth. And of course, this is a top-down camera view, so that's why you see the top of my head here. And here I am now adding on the spikes. These go on the top of the chomper, and that's another thing. You can actually just form substances right outside of with the paper clay itself to make any shape that you kind of want. And here I am again showing the water to get it in place. And here's what it looked like after it was all dried up, and it's ready to paint. So here I am now painting the body and the head purple. This is incidentally the same color purple that I used to color the roof of my pumpkin house, which is also a video that you can go and watch on my channel. Just go to my channel for the link to that. And here I am getting out my lime green type color. I don't even know if they necessarily sell this anymore. I can't quite remember, but it was Craft Smart, which is the paint that they do have at Michael's, I believe is who carries that brand. But I am going to be coloring the lips, the arms, and the feet and or leaves. And here I am adding on with purple the decorations of the feet and putting on more details here. And we're adding in more details with the pink with the mouth, and well as on the outside of the thorns on the head and adding in a magenta on the thorns for more detail, and now painting the it's out of the shot there, but it was the actual tongue that you can see here, and now adding on all these different spots, and on spots with the light pink color as well. And more detail here with the inside of the mouth, as you can see here. And the inside of that mouth was a little bit darker purple than the one that I had used for the rest of the body. And I'm now going to be adding on the paint for neon yellow that I used to have highlights for the lips, and a little bit on the rest of where I painted green. Here's the end results, so you can see everything up in good detail. Well, I want to thank everybody for watching this video. If you liked it, please like it and subscribe for more of these kinds of videos, and see you all again real soon. Be sure to stop by. Bye.